So thank you, Leon, for your kind remarks, but your remarks make my shoulder even heavier. And after two professionals' morning session, I feel like more burdened to say my words. And it is so because my topic is quite heavy, and creative economy in strategy. So actually what is true is that nobody knows for sure what is creative economy in the first place. And the reason why we organized this seminar today is as a kind of our creative attempt to find something as an exploration. So it is not lecture. It is kind of my humble personal opinion, which may be wrong. So I just like to introduce my ideas, what our perspective for cooperation is. So this is the table of contents, and I will start with the introduction of Korean economy, which I think many of you are already familiar with, and some competitiveness and scientific infrastructure area, and business environment, and our strategy or now phenomenon of going global, and what's the challenges of the future, and then ends up why we should find our ideal partner in Israel. So let's first talk about the Korean economy. Korea's GDP is purchase power parity base. It grew from something like $20 billion in the 1970s, now $1.5 trillion. So it is about something like 75 times growth over the period of 40-something years. And accordingly, the per capita GDP also grew from 1980 $2,000 level, now 33,000. It is almost on par with that of Israel. And our annual growth rate is, Korea used to be a fastest growing economy in the 70s and 80s. Our average growth rate used to be over 10%. But as the economy grew large and mature, I think we are touching the limits of quantity. So these days, the average growth rate annual is about 4% something, and our potential growth rate, they say, is about 5%. So how to achieve this 5+% is the task of our economy. And one peculiar thing about the Korean economy is this trade volume. Korea is a trading nation. Korea's economic size is 13th or 13th largest in the world, but we are 8th largest trading nation in the world. And we reached this, I don't know whether it has any meaning, but 1 trillion mark last year. So we are a little bit behind the UK and a little bit ahead of Italy, placing Korea at the 8th place in the world as a trading nation. And so from 1947, where our Korean trade was less than 1 billion, is 1.06 trillion is something, quite a big change. And trade balance, Korea has adopted the export-oriented strategy as an economic development plan for many years. And now we have a trade surplus consistently, and we are doing so all the more because in 1978 we have 1997 we had the economic crisis, which we know the importance of foreign exchanges, and so our now foreign exchange reached about $327 billion. Foreign direct investment towards Korea is not that great. I mean, compared to the size of economy, and annually we have got around $10 billion for foreign direct investment. And let's talk about the competitiveness of Korea. It is statistics made by Deloitte and the U.S. Council, and Korea is China. If we have set China as a 10, then Korea is a 7.59. Not too bad, but it is very alarming news for Korea, because Korea's competitiveness in the trading market is now being chased very fast by China, India, which produce almost the same product as Korea does. And this is the names of the 13 Korean companies that registered their name in the Fortune 500. And you see Samsung, Hyundai, Kia, and we have KOGAS as well here. So KOGAS is ranking 429th in the as a 500 Fortune Global. And this is the products where Koreans have a leading competitive edge, which is a mobile phone, and it's representing the electronic goods. And the Samsung, LG represents this area, and their market share is about 34% in total. And this another electronic goods display, and is LG and Samsung again takes about 50% of market share of the world. And petrochemical, Korea doesn't produce any gas and oil, but we are making products through the import of this material. And lithium battery is petrochemical is one of the economy's strengths. And lithium battery is also produced by Samsung and LG, and takes up about 43% of the market share of the world. And microchip DRAM, it is also Samsung and Hynix. They takes up a bulk of the market share. And the shipbuilding, I mean, is where Korea has the strength as well. It is, I mean, in terms of the order and the volume of the order, Korea is number one, 35% of the world market, and STX, Samsung, and Daewoo, and Hyundai are leading for shipbuilders in Korea. And automobile, Korea is the 5th place in the world as for its market share, about 5.4%. And these are names of the companies you are familiar with. And here in Israel, Hyundai, Kia is also making good inroads in the market. And steel making is also our Korea's strength. And so POSCO and Hyundai Steel, they have the 4th and 20th largest steel mill in the world. And let's take a look at the scientific infrastructure in Korea. So IMD World Competitiveness Index, it shows that from 2008 until last year, Korea's rank in competitiveness went from 31st to 22nd. And the Bloomberg Innovation Index this year, Korea is, for example, in R&D intensity 5th, and patent activity 1st. But in very strangely, productivity is 32nd. So this tells one of the problems the Korean economy has. So in the absolute number of patent application, Korea is number 4 in the world. So after China, US, China, Japan, Korea. So given that Korea is just 50 million population, and the other 3 leaders, they have a population more than 100 million, the number of application itself is very significant. And we are also spending a lot on R&D, and about 4% of our GDP, and in money terms, it amounts to around 45 billion US dollars a year. And of course, Israel leads the world in the ratio of GDP ratio in R&D expenditure, about 4.5%. But Korea is also trying hard, to develop its own R&D by spending quite a big amount of money. And Korea is a country of broadband connection. So any Korean who live abroad, they have some complaints, which is about the speed in the broadband connection. And Israel, of course, is a very developed country, but I think many Koreans here, young people, they wouldn't be very satisfied with the speed the Israel can provide. So Korea is, every 100 inhabitants subscriptions number, Korea leads the world. And this is the doing business environment in Korea, and it is the blue part is if the area colored in blue is the bigger, our business environment is better. And Korea is more or less okay, but registering property area, we have quite a cave-in shape. So compared to what we have found in the previous slide, that Korea is number 4 in the number of patent application, and also quite lower mark in the registering property. So we wonder what happens. And there is a population, human resources. Korea doesn't have any natural resources, but human capital, and also high percentage of Korean people go to the tertiary education. And Korea is second to Singapore in the proportion of the people with tertiary education diploma. So Korea is also Israel startup. Their slogan is going global. Second page of their chart, has the plan how to make the product global. But the Koreans are also trying to go global, and we are now first organize many international events. And Korea organized the 1988 Olympic Games, and also World Cup game 2002. And we are going to host the Winter Olympic game 2 years. Is it 2 years later? Is yes, so next year I think. These are the logos of the events Koreans are organizing. And oh yes, Pyeongchang Winter Olympic is 2018. So next year we have Olympic in Sochi, and from 4 years from next year we are going to have Winter Olympics in Korea. And maybe you heard about Korean pop culture is going global, and Gangnam Style is quite famous everywhere. In Israel as well, and K-pop and Korean drama. It is Koreans themselves are surprised that their popular culture has become so popular all of a sudden. But that's the phenomenon, and some people wonder whether this phenomenon is passing or something really that have substance. And now we are on the side of giving it some substance. So these are good stories, but we have challenges for the future. And when we compare our country, we compare with our neighbors, which is China and Japan. And when China's economy starts to pick up, there was a concern raised in Korea. China is fast chasing us, and Japan is running away fast, and so we are not like nuts squeezed in the nutcracker, and the challenge is coming from both directions. But now we are trying to think that we are in a kind of commanding height situation. We are very fast chasing China, Japan, and by running fast, we can keep some distance behind, some distance China. So anyway, this is the challenge, and Korea, you have seen the statistics of our trading. Our GDP is 1.2 trillion, and our trading is 1 trillion. So it means quite more than 80% of our economy depends on trading, and trading means competitiveness. And if China and Japan, India, they are catching up, then it is a great challenge for us. So we have been also quite a copier of the front runners. All we have to do is just copy what the best practices practitioners do. But now, in some areas, we have become all of a sudden a front runner, and you have nobody ahead of you to copy. So we have to invent ourselves and do some develop some competitive and innovative ideas. So we are trying to continue our core technology development. As today Kogi has presented, we have the technology developed for use in other market and so on. But we also need software and algorithm-related innovation, which is a specialty for startups. And what Korea lacks now is this startup culture. So that's why we are now trying to benchmark the case of Israel in promoting Korean startups. So another factor we have to take into consideration is that maybe you have read the special report of the last 2 weeks ago edition of The Economist. It carried a special report on Korea, and it analyzed the Korean economic structure. And one thing it mentioned is the two important roles, rather. I mean, the conglomerates are playing in the Korean economy. So, for example, in the trade, the conglomerates, they account for 2/3 of our export and import, and the SMEs only 1/3 the rest of it. And another problem of Korean economy, we mentioned that the low productivity is one of the problems Koreans have. It's not because the conglomerates are less productive, but because SMEs and the service sector is not productive enough. So SMEs and service sector, they need, some improvement in their productivity. And the important thing is now the joblessness among young generation has become a great social issue in Korea. And conglomerates, because they are mechanized, automobilized system, they don't hire not too many people. And the source of employment we have to find in the service sector or SMEs. And that's why we need to help SMEs and service sector to increase their productivity. So what we need is the productivity, which comes with innovation and employment, also productivity and creative ideas. So Korea started this creative economy discourse. On the surface of it, when we talk about creative, then we think about the creative industry, which is films and pop culture and tourism and other things. I mean, where the British are very good at. They produce the best musicals and musics and so on. So Koreans are also, following up with this K-pop culture. We are trying to develop this area. But real answer lies with innovative ideas and technology, which is the specialty of startups. Because actually, Mr. Kim is here, and he has with me for 2 years. And because he brought up his experience, I learned a lot from him. And so what is the use of startups? And then conglomerates, they develop all relevant technologies. That was my question. And so I found that the big conglomerates, because of their size, they cannot move freely and nimbly. So they cannot, meet the need of the market on time. And so that's why, startup is very much needed in every place, including to support the competitiveness of conglomerates themselves. So that's what we took note in Israel. And of course, before I come here, I read the book, The Startup Nation, and it has been my constant concern, interest. And after being here, I follow the matter, and now start this creative economy discourse in Korea. I think we have a good chance to promote my personal idea and also real cooperation between our two countries. So what we have discovered is that creative economy or startup culture, what is important is entrepreneurship and also ecosystem that makes that entrepreneurship possible. And gist of the matter is how to encourage talented people to high-tech startups. So I mentioned once again the special report of economists, and in Korea, all talented people, they want to go to Samsung, not to start startups. So, but we cannot blame them because startups in Korea have not very happy history. So they have to be encouraged, and that's the ecosystem, and that ecosystem Israel has, which is more tolerance of failure. Once you fail in Korea, then you are dead. But here you are alive again. So that's a big difference, and make young people try their experiment and ideas with the startups. And there are many angels here, and angel investors, and also venture capitals experience in valuation, and also doing other services, and also finding good eyes to have good eyes to discern the nice companies. And governments have a grant system which works very effectively because of effective selection process of the people who will awarded the grants and so on. So these are few findings I have made during my stay here. And this is more specific points we are looking at. The Yozma Fund, it is now the thing of the past in the 1990s, but we are just taking note of its importance, which is, the features it has something distinct from what we have in Korea. So it has sunset clause, which means, government just limit itself to certain period and let the market take up. So the Yozma played a kind of, prime water function. So, connecting the underground water with a pump. And when pump starts to take out water, then it disappears. And sunset clause, and also it opened the startup market to foreign investors. And so that kind of open and market-oriented approach, I think, was quite a good attempt for the government of Israel. And OCS, Office of Chief Scientist, is also a very institution peculiar to Israel. And of course, all countries have this organization that promotes science and technology. But in Israel, OCS has, a pan-governmental activity, and also what we took note of was the selection process of the way the grant is given to applicants, and which was quite, different from what we do in Korea. And startup entrepreneurship is, yes, as I mentioned before, they aim for the global market, and also they have experience of developing service, lawyer service, and other IP-related service. They are very highly developed and globalized. But just summing up everything, what is important for Korea to start this startup culture is to create some success story. And I think the virtual soccer in Israel was created because there were somebody who made a headline in the newspaper, and maybe selling or making establishing big company with his own ideas and technology. So in Korea, if we have that kind of success story, then many talented people will come into the market, and the Korean startup ecosystem will start to work. So, but how to, make possible the success story, not artificially but very naturally, is quite a task for us. And so it takes time, but we will give a try with the cooperation of Israeli friends and also your experience. So with our two countries, as you may, it has become almost a cliche that the Koreas have this supplementing nature in economic structure. Korea has a good production platform and the global market capacity, and while Israel has this source of new technology and ideas. So how to combine these two strengths is our question. It's very easy to say, yes, if we combine it, then everybody will win. But in the process of doing so, we see many, we've experienced many difficulties, and a practical way to realize that combination possible is quite more important. So that's why, I mean, we presented this morning the case of KOILTECH.NET. So Signals did a wonderful job, and also we starting with the biomed and renewable energy, because we realized after some trial that the embassy people, diplomats, I mean, visiting one place another, and to find the right match for Korean company, it is impossible. And of course, we are working hard, but the results it can brought about is very limited. So that's why we just created this portal, so that the companies of both countries in certain area may know each other on the cyberspace, and also get them start cooperation by themselves. And another attempt we have done is, venture capital exchanges, because we noticed that venture capitals are people who know better the startups and the companies, because they have their own portfolio, and in order to make money, they have to know the companies they are investing in. So why not, let venture capitals of two countries meet and exchange information about the possible investment between the two countries. So we have done a very initial attempt, and Mr. Kim, who is leaving us soon, so I'm very sorry for that, but he was very creative, and he also tried that attempt and made a wonderful debut. It was November last year, so you have to do it once again before you leave. But in the past, Korea and Israel has been a very important partner in technology cooperation. We understand that Korea has 4 countries that has a government-sponsored scientific promotion fund. It's the United States, Canada, Singapore, and Korea. So this Korea Foundation was started early 2000s, and also done a great job in promoting technology cooperation between our two countries. So our track for cooperation is already there, and how to make it more used and widen it is our task. And we have here 15 young Korean entrepreneurs who came all the way from Korea to Israel to experience the startup culture and also other things. So it is a pilot project, and according to the amount of popularity, they expressed after the meeting, after this project, we will redo again. But so far so good, and so some the young Koreans, they have a plan to stay longer, and as long as the visa problem is solved. So visa is a very, very serious problem for everybody. And so it's a creative economy. If you let me, say my words, it is a very hard thing to define. And in Korea, even the debate is still going on. And I think it's just imagine and experiment new things and creating environment for doing so. And it can be done by combining existing things and learning best practices of others. Is also so that's where we find a very ideal partner in Israel. And We have all these economic structures and conditions, and plus we have something very much in common, which is our experience and memory of development of the country. We achieved our economic success and mature democracy in a very, very tough environment. So if we touched on this topic, then we start to understand each other. So I'm very much positive that we have a very promising foundation for cooperation, and also in spirit and also in concrete forms. So we will continue to work for the realization of this great potential. So thank you very much.